Right, we chose deliberately to try for the balance of the audience to get people to talk about it, and we've tried not to do technology questions on it. So hopefully you've got that, there's a reality of what people are doing. One thing that almost comes out of this is increasingly whatever you want to do is possible and how it's going to change. But I'm going to start with Curt. Right? Curt, if we go back to the topic, it's all very nice to say it's all going to be creative and it's all going to be fun, but isn't the reality that really this is going to dramatically shift the industry because there'll be less people, there'll be a different type of people, and the industry is going to shift to, the data decides. So is that, for all of it's great, and commercially I'm sure the CEOs and all the business people here, your numbers, 20%, 60%, the numbers stack up. Isn't the truth is an awful lot of people who are used to being in the industry are going in for a bit of a shock?
Well, I think, data and technology coming into the business and being client-facing after that presentation is pretty clear. Pepsi also has a social media control center, you do, and I think for us it just goes back to the diversity of talent and the type of talent that we're bringing into the organization that can really deal with the impact of technology and what we do day in and day out. In terms of absolute headcount, I think that Neal hit it spot on. I mean, if there are inefficiencies in the business and we can automate around that, we absolutely have to do it, but in the areas of idea generation, creative, consumer insight, very, very dependent on people and talented people to make that happen for marketers. So I think it's an and. I mean, I think we're going to see technology come in and we're still going to be incredibly dependent on talented people that understand consumers and how to work with marketers and have relationships with people, honestly. We can't send machines into the room. So really knowing how to work with the client is a key aspect to this.
So everybody at the moment, we didn't do it at the start, but if you want to get into acronyms and how many companies and VC backings, and Google's bought how many? 3, 4, 5 of, everybody's in this space, so there is a gold rush going on. To what extent, and every agency network has either got their own version or is partnering with, so to what extent has this tipped? Every year we sit here and people say the agency model's changed. Is this really tipped it? Are we going to be here in 3 years' time and 60% of the presentation will be the latest algorithm? And has the industry tipped, or are we just on the foothills? Where are we?
I think it's early days. So when we launched VivaKi and the Nerve Center in 2008, I had maybe 6 people on my team, and I wasn't really even sure if they were the right people in terms of talent and skill set. And my team is entirely focused on market-facing technology, like how do we optimize the media marketplace, what's coming next, display, social, video, it doesn't really matter. And so, I've got 25 engineers now on my team, and so to your question of fewer people, we actually have more people. They're a different kind of person, and it's early days. Like I can see this, like we're just optimizing the display marketplace. I think we just kind of finished with the search marketplace to a degree, but then we see social feeds come in and new techniques and approaches. So I think it's early days. I'm glad I'm kind of midway through my career, and I think we can get another couple decades.
And because I'd say, looking at your presentation, you wouldn't say that, you've whatever percentage you spend, how much is payable targeting. So you would argue you're already there. What's your reality of the market? And do you think, if you're talking to a marketer in a quiet little conversation and someone comes up, you secretly and go, how serious is this? How quickly should I get on board and start changing what I do? What would you tell them?
I would definitely tell them to get on quickly and start looking at some of that reality. I think we always get surprised by how quickly things move, and we jumped on social very quickly, but that was because we... Sorry?
Kind of had to.
Yeah, kind of had to, exactly. And I think so. I would definitely encourage everyone to go and test and try some of it. It may work in some industries faster than others. Ours is a very adaptive industry, so it worked faster, so definitely.
I'd say from the marketer perspective is really thinking about kind of their data's intellectual capital, right? So I think Dell is a good example where you talk about how much first-party data you have at your disposal. And as long as I've been in the business, there really hasn't been many times where, as a marketer, you could take data as an asset and put it directly into the media marketplace. Like we've been able to do that with direct mail for a long time, but I think now in this total media marketplace with everything becoming digital, the ability to do it in television, obviously display, search, you name it, is huge. And it's going to kind of roll out across the globe. And so, as a marketer, if I were on that side right now, I'd really be saying to myself, I've got a ton of first-party data. How am I going to organize it? First-party data is interesting from a privacy perspective because you've got people opting in, and that relationship between the consumer and the marketer is basically saying, yeah, you know, I'm okay with this. And bringing that into the media marketplace could be huge, I think, in terms of transforming this business.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's actually really driving it, is that first-party data performs so well. It delivers such great results for marketers. And before a lot of this technology emerged, frankly, in the course of the last 18 months, it was really hard to use that data in any sort of real scale. And you know, I've been in the display and the online media business since the very, very early days, and I've never seen a technology ramp up so fast, like things like real-time bidding. Just to give you an idea, a little over a year ago, and we operate sort of one of the largest sort of marketplaces for this stuff, 0 transactions were real-time bidded on our ad exchange. Today that number is 67%. So it's gone from 0 to 2/3 of all media transacting, display media transacting through Google is real-time bidded from nothing just a few months ago. So, and that's largely driven by the results that marketers are seeing from it.
That's right.
So one of the things I was chatting to some of the plans, it's difficult to head around. The ad industry is used to sort of a quite linear model, which is define the problem, define the audience, optimize the creative, cover a frequency, blah, blah. And we use this concept of targeting. You know, who do we want to go and reach, serve an ad to them? And you conceptually about that. Now, what I understand is what I've got is actually the computer is deciding the targeting, because it might not be a way that you thought about describing the targeting. And someone gave me an analogy and it's a bit like a washing machine that decides which clothes to go in, optimizes whether it's hot or clothes, how dirty they are, and then tells you when it's ready, and then, if you're lucky, hangs them up. What is, you know, how does someone get their head around this? Because I'm just thinking from your point of view, how do you get ads? You know, if I've got 65 different behavioral segments, it's nice to sit here and say, here's a royal ad. How on earth do you brief a creative department and an agency to come up with the concepts? Anja, how do you do that?
Yes, I think that you need to start a little bit smaller than that and not go for the 60 different versions as a starting point. And I think we also need to remember that it's the interaction of the media as well. So rather than just jumping into this and making sure that one ad is really targeted towards you and is dynamic, created, there's a lot of other impressions that you see from us during the day that needs to match all of that. But what we do together with the agencies is really creating the platforms and making sure that the core messages stay consistent, that it's the small things that are really on the product focus that is really changing, the price points, it's those kinds of things. And then the media that you see the ads on.
What about more creatively? So you can do video, you talk later on, possible that will be in short time, you can do the same thing, serving ads on television. So if I'm a creative, more creatively oriented, I've got a brand message, it's Pepsi, how do I arrive on that? Because it's not necessarily optimizing the offer,
right.
It's optimizing the message to the person at the moment.
I think what the technology is offering is the opportunity for the creative agency to actually spend more time on that aspect of it, do that piece that they do best, because we all know the way it works today is you spend a lot of time generating ideas, developing the creative content, but then you spend an incredible amount of time creating sort of the custom sponsorships and all the technology back and forth with flash files and movie files and all these types of things to come up with the few variations of that creative concept that you're looking to develop. And the point is that now the technology can take care of a lot of those sort of mundane tasks for you and not just create 10 or 12 permutations, but hundreds or thousands of permutations so that you're freed up to focus on the things that humans do best, which is come up with the interesting ideas, the creative concepts, and let technology handle the rest. I think that's an important point, and that shouldn't get lost in all of the kind of the wow things that you can do with millions and millions of permutations. A lot of this is just eliminating a lot of that sort of mundane complexity that exists in the market that sucks up a lot of the time of the people that are in this room today.
Let me give you an example of how it should work. So we still need the creative idea, we need the consumer insight, and the beautiful creative that's out there that's going to impact consumers should be building demand. So when you launch a campaign, if you've got a new car, a new whatever, a new laptop, you still need to let a lot of people know that it's coming, that it exists, and get them excited. From that point, once that demand's been created, we can start to lean more on the technology to basically be a little bit more precise around who's kind of raising their hand or sharing signals that they might actually be interested in that product. And I think at that point, we can lean more on the data and technology to basically come back and give more specific and direct messages to convert that audience. And so I think it's how the two work together ultimately to make it successful.
Okay, but all three of you are in the box of performance-orientated, understand it. If you would talk to a creative director now, they get absolutely bothered about, look, I've got a pure idea, and a part of my idea is having the purity. I really get bothered if a client starts saying, well, I can optimize this idea by adding this. And if there's a William Churchill quote, Churchill quote, which says when he was asked about the closing down the arts to pay for the war, he said, why are we fighting then if it's not to protect the arts? So there's a big worry for lots of people, which is all well and good this goes here, but we're going to end up is we've optimized everything, and the beauty of someone just going, I've got an idea and the idea drives it's going to go out the window.
No. That's not what I said. I think we still need to build that notion of demand and a brand and presence and get people excited, or there's a certain passion between the consumer and the product. But
I've got the creative director from Wyden and Kennedy who works with Nike sitting here. Persuade him that the best way of doing ads that make Nike famous is to optimize it with various targeting on the internet. Persuade him.
Well, no, I think there's a balance. I think there's a balance, and there's a right time and right spot for everything. So I think we also have the Dell branding activities, and that's not being changed based on the audience. That is the overarching Dell core values that we want to present. But it's as we move down to more transactional space where somebody lifted the hand and said, yes, I am interested, that's where we tend to mind that. But it is in a company like ours where we have so much data, it is important to keep reminding that there is something that is more creativity, there is more art, and you don't get drawn totally into that total science.
And I think the important point there is, even in your pure brand example, there's, especially in the digital space, there's still a tremendous amount of time that's being spent on all those sort of mundane technology-related or otherwise uninteresting tasks that the creative department is getting sucked up in. If nothing else, forget about the optimization and all those pieces. Technology should work to eliminate and streamline a lot of that inefficiency that exists so that more hours of the day can be spent on the creative concept, even if you're not optimizing based on any sort of data downstream.
Okay. Let me be a bit of an English phrase, numpty. You've said that the money's going to go up. You've said performance goes up. You've got all these technical people. I'm trying to get how this adds up. So if I spend my money more effectively to get a performance, surely ultimately I spend less money.
So let me make
So, going back to being a media owner in the mix here, if everybody optimizes everything, I spend less to get more. How ultimately does a media owner get more money in this new model? Because surely what's going to happen is you might get more money and the client might be more happy and you might be happy. But if I'm the person who's got the website, is that being served? Don't I get less ultimately?
So let me give you a concrete example of how I think this is going to play out. I think all of us in the audience have seen that single slide that describes the digital media industry with advertisers on one end and publishers on the other end, and hundreds of other companies that sort of sit between the advertisers and the publishers. The result of a lot of the fragmentation and the resulting friction and inefficiency that I talked about is that a dollar that starts with the advertiser, by the time it ends up with the publisher, is worth something like 35 cents. That's unsustainable for the publisher. It's poor ROI for the advertiser, and it means, by no fault of the companies that sit in between, little pounds of flesh are basically taken out of that media dollar by the time it ends up on the right-hand side, because all these technologies talking to each other exact a toll, all the cookie matching that exists to get the right type of targeting exacts a toll, etc. And the vision that I was trying to describe is that what if that dollar that ended up that starts on the left-hand side of that picture, by the time it ends up on the right-hand side, is not cut down to 35 cents because of all this inefficiency, but what if it's worth 80 cents and the players in the middle take the toll for the value that they're actually delivering, but a lot more value is actually getting delivered to the publisher at the same time the advertiser is getting much higher ROI.
Okay. But I get that, but the reality is someone's got to lose. So if the reason it's going from $1 to 80 cents is all these people in the middle, so who's the people in the middle who disappear?
Well, just to give you one concrete example, today, despite the fact that we talk about all this technology, 28 cents of every media dollar get eaten up just in the back and forth friction between RFPs and IOs that exist between advertisers and agencies and publishers. The matching number in television is 2%. So there's 14 times more inefficiency that exists in the digital space than something that we consider sort of old world or traditional, being television. And so this technology, if it brings that sort of 28% down to 2%, that's just inefficiency getting beaten out of the market. It's not someone losing or someone winning. It's just the fact that there's a lot of the process that exists today that needs to get a lot better.
Okay.
That's just one example.
The loser will be the company that cannot deliver a quality audience, right? So if you can't deliver a quality audience at the end of the day, you're going to have a difficult time because the data and the technology is going to start to make it more transparent back to the marketer, back to the agency, overall, basically the quality of that impression and who's going.
Okay, but so if I go to the business model, being very generic, so the agency business model historically, bit of fees, increasing the commission, and we all know about procurement, who unfortunately for everybody is chasing the discount, not necessarily performance. So Dell are very focused on performance. What's your business model going forward? So if you're going to go in and I hire you and you're going to give me 20% performance, how do you get paid? Is it share of performance, or what happens in the future?
So all clients will have different models around this, but for the most part, the ability to bring technology into the business. So we're investing around $30 million in our technology today to optimize these marketplaces. And so our ability to go to clients with platforms that can actually help them do a better job in the marketplace as a whole is one. How we actually leverage and use the data. So we have analytics teams within all of our agencies, and their ability to kind of go back to what I was saying before, like leverage the data in the media marketplace is of huge value. And then, once again, 200 people total. I mean, that talent base and their knowledge in terms of how to work within this market, we think is pretty valuable, and to a degree puts us in a kind of a leading position in the market. I want a premium for that talent. So it's still, services and fees based, but each piece of this is a different component.
The assumption is, so anybody seen the movie Spartacus? At the end, it's who's Spartacus, and everybody holds their hand up. So it's very difficult to explain to a client why your technology is better and why your performance is better. Anja leaves a job, she's very happy where she is with her agency, I'm sure. She gets a new job, she reviews her agencies, who all turn up with their demand-side platform, with their optimum performance, put it in front of a procurement director. How does a client identify the difference? What would you do? So are we going to see different pitches? What would you do, Anja?
I think we are going to see different pitches going forward. I think you are going to see much more focus on the technology. I think you're going to be seeing much more focus, at least we are putting much more focus on client references and performance-driven inputs that we can get. So I think you are going to see more than that. But still, to some extent, you have to go and test and innovate your way through it. You cannot solve it through the pitch
So
process.
what would happen in the pitch? At the moment, it's a beauty show, no respect. Nobody checks the numbers up, and then everybody beats each other up. And sorry, it's
maybe you do a test. Maybe you engage with a couple and say, let's live together for a honeymoon time, and then after that we will make the decision. We're trying to figure out what is the best way forward in this new landscape.
I would say, so the pitches I've been in this year, it's dramatically different than the pitches last year. I mean, in the Disney review this year, we flew out for the final day, and my CTO led off the morning in terms of presentations. What's your stack? What technology are you using? Questions that I've never seen or heard in 20 years in this business, with technical people from the client side in the room. And so that's kind of a pressure cooker situation. You can't fake that. Either you've invested in the talent and the infrastructure, or you haven't. And on that given day, we had made those investments, and the story was compelling. But I do think it's going to change in the beauty contest. And you can't fleece the clients, and you're going to have more sophisticated ones that actually know how this works.
Okay, last question for me. So if anybody in the audience, then we've got a little votey thing to go up. Right, the reality is Google's it is a technology business. I'm not even allowed to say it's a media business. I'm never quite sure. But ultimately, you've got the businesses run by technology people at the top. No disrespect to agencies, but agencies have got leaders, bosses who've come out of an advertising and a media background. Isn't it a little bit nervous that if your path going forward is this new future, no respect to all the chief agency bosses who are going to kick me afterwards, isn't it quite difficult to have bosses who actually haven't got a maths degree, aren't used for the technology? Because if I go back to what actually happened in Wall Street, one of the problems in Wall Street was ultimately when it went south is because the people who ran the banks didn't understand what the quants were doing and couldn't understand the numbers. So is there not an issue with your business that it might be great, you might be absolutely right, but the people steering the business to make the decisions about the investment or the margins and stand up for the rates for your technology when it's a call at the pitch don't get it?
No, I mean, I can only speak for our organization, so it's a little tough since my boss is in the room. But
he's
Jack
over there.
Cruz has been, he's over there, but he's been one of the largest advocates of our team. Like, keep in mind, when we started the Nerve Center, it was a cost that had to find its way to being a reality for the company, and particularly kind of on the exchange-based side of it, Jack has taken a very keen interest because we've got big global relationships with companies like Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola, et cetera. And so we've got to make sure that we don't kind of touch the rails in terms of what we're doing here. And a lot of good business practice kind of flows through that. So how we leverage the technology to support those relationships and stay true to what we've always done is key. And then I sit in Paris now, and Maurice Levy certainly understands technology and is more than happy to have me come up and meet with someone or kind of look to see what we're doing in pretty great detail.
I think one of the nice things about technology is it either works or it doesn't work, and the results are very clear. So if Google's not doing a good job for Publicis, then that's going to become apparent very quickly from a technology standpoint, and that's, I think, one of the things that is so great about kind of this technology-driven shift in the industry.
One thing I forgot to cover. So I don't want to go into great detail about data and privacy, but we've got the EU directive about to come out. I'll just touch Anja's point on this. If you were to give, what's your view? How big an issue is this that we're facing, and what would you advise a client or agency to do?
It's definitely something to be taken very, very serious, and we do. I think it comes back to serving up relevant information. Make sure that you're not intrusive. Make sure that the advertising you provide is relevant, and then you are going to get the opt-ins, and it kind of solves that way. But definitely, privacy is not to be joked around with.
Okay. Okay. Well, just do the little vote if we can. Sorry, we're out of time. There's a couple of little votes we can do for you while you're here. Can we put the first question up? First question. If the media agency does go more Wall Street, who is most likely to be the commercial beneficiary? Choose one, media agencies. Choose existing major digital media technology companies like Google, but there are others. Newer technology platform companies who have entered this space. The existing media publishers with digital space, so I've got space to sell through one of these, or advertisers. So only one who's going to commercially benefit. Okay, and the little music plays now. Good job, Neal. Interesting. And second question, could we put the second question up, please? We can talk about that in the bar afterwards. Right, which of these, speaking someone who has occasionally done maths and physics and was not very good at it, which of these degree areas would give you the best chance of being a media agency leader of the future? Maths, business, art, or politics? And the survey says, ooh, Anja's happy. So Anja's got a business degree. Curt's history, electrical engineering, and I won't tell you what I did. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to question. That's entirely my fault. We tried to get through the panel. There are lots of people around from all sorts of companies. Please do grab them and follow this stuff up. Can I just say thanks very much for our speakers, Neal, Anja, and Curt.